Greetings, travelers, and welcome back to the Tales from the Enchanted Forest podcast with your hosts, Fox and Sparrow.
Salutations from the still very cold and snowy Enchanted Forest, which I am loving because I love snow and everything, but I think I'm ready for the temperature to get warmer by at least 10 degrees Celsius, and then we could still be in frozen land, but not bitterly cold. That would be great, thanks.
We're having an early March here. It's spring. It feels like spring. The sun is shining. The birds are singing. I've given up on winter. So you can come here and I'll go there.
Yeah, let's please swap. I do love winter, but it has, at least from where I've been at, it has been so bitterly cold. I just want it to be like -5. If we could just get -5, that would be great. Thank you.
Do you know what the groundhog did? Did the groundhog see its shadow or no?
I think it saw its shadow. It did it's seeing its shadow means it's longer winter, right?
Yeah, because the thing is, it sees its shadow, it gets scared, it goes back, and then it's a longer winter.
Yeah.
If it doesn't see its shadow, it comes out, and then all the animals come out of hibernation. I don't know if this is a myth that we just have in North America. Do other people have groundhogs?
I think it's just North America. It's one of those super crazy things that I kind of love because it's just so weird to me. I don't know the origins on that, but yeah, it saw its shadow, so we're going to get 6 more weeks of winter. But at the time of recording this, it is the 2026 Winter Olympics, and they're in full swing. So at least we have 2 more weeks of sports events happening, which I am thrilled about.
Okay, I'm going to be very honest. I am not a sport person. I do like watching people be really good at their craft. I think the only one that I consistently watch is probably figure skating because I love, figure skating I think looks so delicate, but then you can see the muscles underneath everything and you're like, wow, that takes so much skill to hold yourself up like that, to arch like that while you're on skates. So I think that's the only one I really watch. I remember the Canadian Olympics so well, the ones that we hosted, because there was this song that was everywhere and everyone was singing it. Do you remember what song I'm talking about?
I believe in the power
I believe in the
of
power.
you and
I remember that song. I hear it sometimes in my dreams, but I cannot think about the Winter Olympics that year without thinking of I Believe, because it was everywhere.
They played it so much.
Oh, and then every time they won something, they would do like a little video of the athletes growing up or whatever with that in the background. It was iconic. So I think nothing will ever match that. So we need to have another Winter Olympics hosted in Canada that has an exact vibe.
There's something so special about when your home country is hosting the Olympics, and it's just awesome, and I love it.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm not a huge sports person from the day-to-day standpoint, but I absolutely adore the Olympics. I love watching a whole variety of sports like all around the same time and like seeing people at the top of their game competing. I love discovering a sport I'd never heard of before and then 20 minutes into watching it suddenly feeling like I'm an expert and be like, ooh, they didn't do that spin well. Like, oh my gosh. Like there's something about it. I also just love seeing the world come together. Like so many people from every part of the globe just coming in and be like, we're going to see who's the best in this like particular thing. I don't know. To me, it's just such a special thing. I love it.
I have a question for you then. Out of all of the sports in the Winter Olympics and, forgetting things that you're already good at, skill, effort, whatever, based just on fun, which sport would you want to compete in for the Winter Olympics?
Okay, if we're putting skill aside and everything.
Yeah, no skill, just based on vibes.
No skill. Based on vibes. If we're also saying that I would actually have the nerve to do it, I would want to do like snowboard big air or snowboard racing. Like I've not done snowboarding a ton in my life, but a few times I've done it, I have like adored doing it. So I would either like to do that like racing or doing like the big tricks. But I know the fact of the matter is I'm too much of a scaredy cat and I would just be like not actually be able to go off the big jumps and stuff. But one of those sports I would love. Just on vibes, I love that. I love that vibe.
Yeah, that makes sense.
How about you?
My answer is because of the movie Cool Runnings. Do you remember the movie Cool Runnings?
Oh, that was like was it the Jamaican bobsled team?
The Jamaican bobsled team. Because I had never heard of bobsledding before, and I was so confused about what this was. And the movie completely changed my mind. And anytime I see bobsled now, I think it's the closest you probably feel to being a rocket. You know the rocket in Mario Kart? The black one that like goes around and like destroys everything?
Yeah, Bolt Bill.
In my head, being in a bobsled and going that fast is you being a rocket. And I know the skeleton, a lot of people like the skeleton. The skeleton freaks me out. I think that one is like head first, no thank you. But in a bobsled with other people, I couldn't do it, but if the situation was that I could compete in one of these things and I could train for it, I think bobsledding.
Yeah.
Alternate reality.
Bobsled would be up there.
In a different life, I'm on a bobsled somewhere.
It does seem like a very fun and like not safest. It does seem like the less likely to instantly kill yourself if you make a wrong turn, but you also get to go super fast.
Yeah. Or, I could also say figure skating.
Yeah. I will say one sport I feel like that gets a lot of flack is curling, but I have done curling and it's also really fun. So like watching it, I understand is not as enjoyable, but when I've done curling, it's actually really fun. It's just like
it's also not easy. On TV, it's like, wow, that looks super easy. It's like darts to me, because in darts, whenever I watch people play darts, I'm like, I could do that. Then I try and I'm like, wow, I suck. I need to humble myself a little bit. But there are certain, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but when you see certain things and you're like, wow, I could do that too. And then you try it and you realize you're like, very, very quickly that this is not as easy as it looked like on the internet. I feel like that's my mantra in life, because my husband will sometimes be like, I'll say I want to try this and he's like, okay, great. And then I'm immediately not great at it. And I'm like, I want to give up. And he's like, no, you have to practice. And I'm like, no, I need to be immediately good at it or I suck.
Anyways, I'm going to have a lot of fun watching these Olympics and whatnot. So in honor of the Olympics, I wanted to find a story about intense competition, something where characters are looking to achieve something and be the best of the best, because this is there's a reason we have the Olympics. There's like a fun desire and need to try and be the best in a particular skill, whether it be running or like skating or skiing or swimming, whatever it is. People have always wanted to compete and try and be the best. So I was looking for a story about that. But in order for us to look at what's the best of the best, we had to look beyond folklore and turn to myths of the divine, specifically the Asgardians from Norse mythology.
Dun, dun, dun.
This story originally comes from Snorri Sturluson's Prose Edda, but we have used many different translations and versions when recreating this tale. So, with all of that preamble said, dear travelers, it's time to buckle up and prepare yourself for one of the greatest competitions of all time. Tales from the Enchanted Forest presents Thor versus Utgard-Loki. Our story begins with a side quest. One day, Thor and Loki were traveling east in Thor's goat-drawn chariot. Because what's better than a regular chariot is a goat-drawn chariot. As night approached, they came across a peasant's cottage and decided to stay there for the night. The tenants could hardly refuse the company of Thor and Loki, so they made room for them as they could. To Thor's credit, he did offer to make dinner. Before they could ask any questions, Thor butchered and skinned his 2 goats and put them in a cooking pot. After the food had been cooked, they all feasted upon the meat, including the 2 peasant children, Thialfi, the son, and Roska, the daughter. Thor instructed them to throw the goat bones onto the goat skin, which he had spread out nearby for easy access. Unfortunately for Thialfi, Thor didn't give a full explanation to them of why they were doing this. So while trying to get some of the marrow out of the bones, he broke one of the shank bones with his knife and thought nothing of it. Early the next morning, Thor, using Mjolnir, consecrated the goat skins, and boom, just like that, the goats returned to their usual selves, except, of course, the one goat who had a broken hind leg. Thor's rage was overflowing, and the peasants began freaking out, because while they may not have known what had happened or why he was super upset, they knew they were in trouble. Seeing their fear, Thor calmed down and allowed them to pay him back by making the two children become his servants. Honestly, this feels like a weird move for Thor. It's just like, my goat is injured, give me your two children as payment.
I mean, I like the version more where the parents just give the children to him. They're like, don't kill us, take them. I feel like self-preservation wins, and you're like, these kids are probably better off with Thor than they were with their parents, who are willing to just give them up to the first god they anger. You gotta hold it out for a bit.
Yeah, I guess they are gonna. It's certainly a more exciting life for sure now that they're gonna be traveling with Thor, but it's such a rough go, honestly. With that, Thor left his goats behind, and the group, now consisting of Thor, Loki, and the two peasant children, made their way east to the country of the giants. They traveled for many days past deep seas and into a dark forest. One evening, they came across a large structure that seemed to be a large hall. Thinking that this was as good as any to rest, they went inside and made camp for the night. But just as everyone got settled, they felt a great earthquake that shook the whole building. This freaked everyone out, and Thor ushered everyone further into the structure while he stood by the entrance waiting to see if anyone would approach. Nothing appeared, but the group could hear groaning sounds throughout the night. When the light of dawn came, Thor investigated the noise and found a great giant sleeping nearby. Thor prepared himself for a fight, as he is wont to do. But when the giant awoke and stood to his full height, Thor felt an unusual sensation: fear. The giant told them that his name was Screamer, and suggested that if they were all traveling in the same direction, they may as well travel together. They agreed and packed up for the day's journey. It was at this time the giant wondered aloud where his glove was. This is when Thor realized that the great hall they had slept in the night before was actually the thumb of the giant's glove. With the giant's glove and supplies in tow, the group set out once again. When night fell, the group set up camp by an old oak tree. The giant gave his bag of provisions to Thor and told him to prepare supper with his supplies, and then fell right asleep. Thor tried and tried to open the bag, but he could not untie the knot that kept the bag tightly shut. Unsurprisingly, Thor did not take this defeat well, so in his rage, Thor lifted the mighty Mjolnir and hurled it at the giant's head. This awoke the giant, who asked if a leaf had fallen on his head before promptly falling back to sleep. It's going to be rough for Thor's ego. Completely flabbergasted by this, the group decides to forego dinner and just go directly to sleep. But Thor would still go on to hit the giant 2 more times in the night due to his loud snoring. And each time the giant awoke, he asked if an acorn or moss had fallen on his head. After that rough night of sleep, Screamer told the group that he would be heading north now, but that their destination, the city of Utgard, was not far from them. Though he warned them that there were much bigger giants there, and the denizens there would not care much for little folk like them. So the group traveled on, and soon enough, Thor's group came upon a huge city with tall walls and sturdy gates that even Thor's hammer wouldn't be able to smash. However, because the walls and gates were giant-sized, Thor, Loki, and the kids were able to slip through the bars of the gates with ease and continued into the city. There they met with the King Utgard-Loki, no relation to regular Loki, who looked unimpressed with the interlopers. The king explained that all those who stay here must prove to be highly skilled in one way or another. Basically, Thor and co. are gonna have to show that they are the best of the best in order to stay in the city, which finally brings us to the Norse Olympic part of the story. Yay! Loki approaches Utgard-Loki and declares that he can eat quicker than anyone else. The king acknowledges Loki's claim and calls for Logi, who will be Loki's competition. Servants bring forth a trough full of meat, and Loki stands on the side while Logi stands on the other. They both start eating as quickly as possible before ultimately meeting right in the middle. Loki ate every piece of meat, while Loki ate the meat, the bones, and the trough itself. So the victory went to Loki. With one demigod down, Thialfi stepped forward and said that he was the fastest runner he knew. Utgard-Loki called upon Hugi to be Thialfi's competitor in a good old-fashioned foot race. Thialfi had a good start, but Hugi stayed ahead the entire time and finished first. Utgard-Loki acknowledged that Thialfi was one of the fastest runners they had seen in a while, but he did not think he could catch up to Hugi. Nevertheless, the two competed in 2 more races, with Hugi winning each time with bigger and bigger margins.
Sorry, the idea that Loki didn't win in his thing against a giant, but this farmer boy's son almost, I guess, not almost, but, put up a good fight against a giant in a race. I feel like the giant needs to take one step.
Yeah, no kidding.
And he's there.
This left Team Thor 0 for 2 trials now. I'm not sure if this was a men-only competition or if Roska just didn't want to bother with this. But either way, she stays out of the whole thing and lets them do their competition. Utgard-Loki now turns to Thor and asks how he will prove himself, to which Thor declares that he can drink better than anyone. Unfortunately, I feel like I know guys like this who would want to claim that.
I feel like that's such a red flag. Why would you want to, even if you could? I feel like after a certain point, too much of any drink or food or anything would make me want to throw up, regardless of what I was doing.
If you understand the assignment and are like, yeah, I want to just drink a lot, but I know I'm not going to win, then at least you could go into it, say you're going to drink a lot, but then know your limit and stop. I just don't think that's what Thor is going to do. Anyways, so the king accepts this declaration from Thor and retrieves a large horn. He tells Thor that a good drinker will empty the horn in 1 go. Some men will finish in 2, and only the most puny of drinkers will empty in 3. Without hesitation, Thor drank and drank, but after 1 go, you could barely notice if any liquid was drained from the horn. Angry, Thor drank as much as he possibly could 2 more times, but had to bail as he could drink no more. In the end, he was only able to lower the level of the liquor in the horn by a little bit. Utgard-Loki could see that Thor was not ready to fully give up yet, so he offered him another challenge. He explained that he had this cat that other giants would pick up from time to time. As such, he challenged Thor to pick up the cat. Thor confidently approached the gray cat and tried lifting it from the middle. The cat arched its back, keeping its paws on the ground. Thor exerted his entire strength in trying to lift the cat, but in the end, he could only get 1 paw off the ground before he had to forfeit the challenge. At this point, Thor is just angry and wants to hit someone, so he challenges anyone to a wrestling contest. Utgard-Loki nods and asks a servant to fetch a particular individual who would be a good match for Thor. The servant returns with a toothless old woman whom the king regards as his old nurse, Ellie. Having no issue fighting an old lady, the match began, but it was by no means a long one. No matter how much Thor pushed, the old woman always stood her ground, and when she pushed back, Thor faltered and was eventually pinned down. With this, the group was well and truly defeated. At this point, it was late into the night, so the troop was allowed to stay just 1 night. The next morning, Utgard-Loki escorted the party outside the city. Utgard-Loki declares that while he lives, this group will never be allowed into the city again, and if he knew how strong they all were before, he would never have allowed them to enter the first time. It's at this point that Utgard-Loki monologues about what had really transpired over the last couple days. Starting with Screamer, who was actually Utgard-Loki in disguise. The bag of provisions was tied closed with an iron thread that would not allow one to find how to untie the knot or loosen the rope. So this goes beyond just what happened in the city. Like, he was messing with them way before that. The next trick came when Thor hit him in the head 3 times. Each time Thor threw the hammer, Utgard-Loki used magic to have the hammer hit rocks in a mountain instead. In fact, there are now 3 new valleys in the nearby mountain range because of it.
Nothing was ever real.
Honestly, this is insane.
It does make sense, though. It has that vibe of when you watch a movie or something, and towards the end, they're like, actually, it was all a dream. Except it's just Utgard-Loki being like, I'm the giant of illusions, of course. This is all a giant illusion.
Right? Though, I do have to question his sanity, because if he saw Thor just carved 3 new valleys in the mountain, like, why were you not like, maybe this is not the person to mess with? Maybe I just leave this one.
I don't know. It seems like maybe he's bored.
Yeah. But now this brings us to the competitions where Utgard-Loki employed a great deal of illusions. So first was the eating competition with Logi. See, Logi was flames, which is how he was able to consume the meat, bones, and trough all at once. So Loki never really stood a chance in this regard.
No.
Next was Hugi, who was the personification of thought. So there was no way a simple peasant boy was going to outrun just pure thought.
See, I love plays on words like this because what else could devour everything except for fire? You can't ever outrun your thoughts. It reminds me of Water Moon by Samantha Soto, where they travel and they do all these things with a topsy-turvy kind of way because they're using wordplay. Like at one point, they realized that the fastest way to travel was through gossip. And so they traveled through gossip. And I love things like that where it's almost like a riddle.
Yeah, exactly. It's really clever, and it does feel like perfect for this kind of like oral storytelling.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, can you understand what's going on? It also tracks with like what we know of Thor. Like, Thor is super powerful and stuff, so I feel like most stories of him are like him being awesome. So it's like, what's your justification of like a time when Thor was not awesome? It's like, well, he was just, there was trickery involved. Now, as for the horn, it was magically connected to the sea. So what Thor was really drinking was seawater. The fact that Thor was able to drink enough to actually lower the water level in the horn means that the sea's level has actually visibly shrunk, which is kind of scary to think about. How much water can this man drink?
I feel like it must have been so embarrassing for him throughout the entire competition, being like, what's wrong with me? It was all an illusion, Thor.
Right? I do feel bad, but like also you're drinking seawater. How did the magic just revamp the taste where you did not notice that? This brings us to the cat, which was not a cat at all. The cat was actually the Midgard serpent. And for those of you who don't know, this creature wraps around the whole world, and the fact that Thor was able to raise it off the ground even a little bit was actually like quite dangerous for like the integrity of the world. So like this, he must have been freaking the heck out at this point. Like, what is going on?
Maybe I've gone too far.
Right? So lastly, there was the old woman Ellie, who was actually the personification of old age, which no man can stop. With that, Utgard-Loki promises that they will never see each other again. But if Thor does come looking for him or his city, he vows to defend it with such tricks that they will never overcome. Thor tries to smash the problem with Mjolnir one last time, but in that instant, Utgard-Loki and the city vanishes. And that is the Thor Olympic competition that we see here.
Dun, dun, dun.
I love this story so much. I think it's really funny.
I think it's really funny too. I think it's really clever.
Yeah.
The fact that Thor wasn't even looking for this giant or his city, and he does come across them, but by his own, by the giant's own will. it also makes you wonder, is there really no connection between Loki, the trickster god, and Utgard-Loki? Because they both seem to have this vibe to them, which I'm not complaining about.
Yeah, but it's also just funny, like, if you read the story, you can often forget Loki is there. Like, he's mentioned really at the beginning, like, Thor and Loki are traveling, and then he's mentioned when his competition happens, but, like, that's it. Like, you could really forget. And also, Roska's only mentioned the one time. Like,
I wonder if Loki realizes, being the trickster god, that there's, like, a great trick happening, so he's like, I'm gonna let this play out because Thor needs humbling real quick. I
think he's just hanging out to be like, I'm just following Thor around because he's going to do something dumb and I get to watch it. Like, I think that's the vibe that's happening here. At least that's what it feels like. But I'm also probably heavily influenced from Marvel's take on Loki, which is a fun vibe, but probably not, like, myth accurate, I would say.
I like the idea of Loki as a chaos gremlin. Too many trickster characters have morals and all this stuff. I'm like, no, your entire goal as a trickster is to be tricky. And that's what I really liked about Supernatural. I think they played the trickster role quite well.
Travelers, thanks for listening. Thanks for enjoying. I hope you guys had fun with this story of competition. And I hope you guys, for those who enjoy it, have fun with the Olympics. And stay safe, stay warm out there.
And if you do want to hear more from us and find out what our next tale will be, then you can join us on social media sites like Bluesky, where you're either under the podcast name or at From Enchanted. If you are old school like Sparrow, however, then you can always email us at talesfromenchantedforest.com or visit us on the website www.talesfromenchantedforest.com. We'd love to hear your comments, questions, and suggestions.
And remember, there's always a place for you in the Enchanted Forest.